In this video, we're going to talk about 5 of your most essential first buys if you plan on recording music. Now, this video is perfect for you if you're a complete newbie and you want to get into songwriting, you want to get into recording, producing, and you just want to start being able to record some music at home. Maybe you're already an established artist or songwriter and you want to be able to track part of your songs at home. Maybe you want to be able to record professional sounding vocals, or you want to be able to put guitar tracks down. This is also perfect for you. Or maybe you're already a fairly established music producer and you're looking to upgrade your setup, or maybe even open a commercial space. Well, this is still relevant for you because these are the 5 most essential things that anybody needs if you plan on recording music. So let's dive in. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to assume that you already have a computer that's powerful enough to run the sessions that you want to run. If not, then that's the first thing that you should go and buy. Windows, Mac, doesn't really matter, whatever you're comfortable with, that's the first thing that you're going to need. But assuming you already have that, then the first thing on your list, and number 1, is your interface and or converters. This is the essential bit of kit that's going to allow you to capture your recordings and get them into your computer, into your DAW. Now, there are a few things to consider when it comes to choosing your interface and converters, and the main consideration is knowing how many tracks you want to be able to record simultaneously. Now, if you're just going to be recording simple demos or very simple singer-songwriter style tracks, or even if it's going to be much bigger complex arrangements, but you plan on recording every individual element one at a time, then you can get away with a fairly small interface. You don't need a lot of inputs, and there are loads of interfaces that have just 2 or 4 inputs. That is going to be plenty for you if that's what you plan on doing. However, if you want to be able to record a full live band, or if you're planning on recording really complex instruments that need multiple mics like drum kits or grand pianos or orchestras or something like that, then you're going to need to know how many inputs you need. Now, there's loads of interfaces that come with 8 channels. That gives you 8 mic line inputs and also 8 channels of conversion. But it's probably a good idea to look at expandability as well. Many interfaces are expandable by something called ADAT. That means that you can expand it to 16 channels or even 32 if that's what you need. Now, there are loads of really great interfaces on the market today. Like most things, you do tend to get what you pay for. So if you're able to stretch your budget a little bit, it really is worth doing that. However, if all you can afford is a fairly cheap budget interface right now, that is going to be absolutely fine. The converters in just about all modern interfaces are very, very good, and they far surpass the quality that they were at 10, 15, 20 years ago. The preamps that are built into interfaces, particularly those cheaper bottom end interfaces, can be a bit dull and a bit sterile, but they're at least clean. They allow you to get clean recordings into your DAW, and then you can process them and you can liven them up from there with some plugins. Now you've got the interface sorted, the second thing you need to consider is your DAW, your digital audio workstation. What software are you going to use to capture your recordings, to do all of the editing, the production, the mixing, the mastering? Now, I'm going to keep this section really, really brief because ultimately it doesn't matter. Just choose a piece of software that you like to use, that you find easy, and just roll with it. Don't look back. They all do exactly the same thing. There is no difference in sound between any of the DAWs, but yet you'll still get people all over the internet claiming that this one's the best or that one's the best and you shouldn't be using this DAW, you should all be using this one. It's all complete nonsense, it's all BS, it's a myth. Just choose a DAW that you like to work with and just roll with it. In my studio, I'm using Cubase. The reason that I use Cubase is because it's the one I learnt on about 10 to 15 years ago, and there's literally no reason to change. If Cubase isn't for you, there's Pro Tools, there's Logic, they're all at different price points and you'll have things like upgrade fees to consider. However, Universal Audio have their own DAW, Luna, which at the moment, as of making this video, it's completely free. So that might be worth checking out. I know there's a lot of people out there that really like Luna. Now on to number 3, and I'm lumping 2 things together here, and it is your monitors and acoustic treatment. Your monitoring is essential to get right, and your acoustic treatment is part of that. If you can't accurately hear what you are recording, producing, mixing, mastering, then you are always going to be in for a nasty surprise when you take your song somewhere else to listen to, when you put it in the car, when you put it on those stereo speakers or the Bluetooth speakers. you're going to be in for some nasty surprises. The aim here isn't to have the most perfect, accurate monitor environment, although that certainly would help. It's to have an environment that translates from one place to another. Now, my studio that I'm in right now, is it the most acoustically perfect room? No, by a long stretch. However, have I got it to a point where I can mix a song and it translates really, really well, if not perfectly, to the car, to those Bluetooth speakers, to those earbuds? Yes. And that ultimately is the key. Now, obviously, if you have loads of money and if you're opening a commercial space, you'll probably want to hire an expert in acoustics to come and take loads of measurements, figure out exactly what treatment you need, where to put your monitors, where to have your listening position, and all of that stuff. However, I'm guessing if you're watching this video and you're setting up your own home studio, you probably don't have that kind of money or that sort of luxury to be able to do that. And that's absolutely fine. You can do what I did and use trial and error to get your room to a place where it sounds really, really good. So the first thing is to choose a set of monitors. And the best advice I can give you here is to go and listen to some. You need to choose monitors that you can rely on and you are happy to work with for hours on end. And this really is a place where you don't want to be scraping the barrel budget-wise. With monitors, you absolutely get what you pay for. So you should get the best ones that you can afford. Now, again, on the internet, everyone will have a different opinion and everyone has a different relationship with different monitors. It's a very personal thing. Some people really like the Yamaha HS range. They're very affordable. However, personally, I find them really, really fatiguing to listen to. When I've worked on HS5, HS7s, HS8s, after a couple of hours, I feel like someone has been taking an ice pick to my ears. I find them really, really hard work to listen to. I've also had Adams, Adam A5Xs and Adam 7Xs in here. And whilst I love the sound of them, I love listening to music on Adam monitors, I never got on with the translation. I was doing mixes, I was taking it out to the car, taking it to the Bluetooth speakers, and I just wasn't gelling with it. I was getting a different sound in different places, and that's because I just didn't get on with the monitors. There was something that just didn't gel. I then moved to focals. I started with some very sort of bottom range focals, and they worked much better than the Adams. Now I'm using Focal Solo 6BEs, and they are absolutely stellar. I can work on them all day for hours on end without them being fatiguing, and the translation is perfect. I can take the mixers out to the car, I can listen on any speakers I want, and it's exactly as I expect. There's no nasty surprises. So go to a showroom, go to a few different studios and listen to the monitors and do a few mixes on them and see how you get on with the translation. Now, in terms of acoustic treatment, you're going to need to put something up in your room. Now, around my room, I've got various different panels around my listening position. I've got a huge cloud above my head, and I've also got some panels behind the speakers. These are just simple wooden frames around rock wool, covered with an acoustically transparent fabric. Because I'm not an expert in acoustics, it took a little bit of trial and error on where to actually put them. But you can hang them up, you can do a couple of mixes, see if it's translating. If it's not, change things up, move them around, and do that over and over again until you get to a point where you're happy with the translation. It takes a while, but the benefit is that it's not costing you anything. Okay, on to number 4. So something that you're almost certainly going to need in your studio is some sort of MIDI keyboard. You're almost certainly going to need a MIDI keyboard of some description. Even if you don't play the keyboard or the piano, it can be really, really useful for inputting things like drums, beats. You can use it to put in synths. In fact, I'm struggling to think of any genre of music where having a MIDI keyboard isn't going to be useful in the recording and the production process. Now, if you are just doing really basic productions, if you're not much of a keyboard player, you don't really know what you're doing with it, you're almost certainly just going to need a small one. These are really, really cheap. You don't need to spend a lot of money. But you can use it to input drum beats, you can use it to input some synths and strings, whatever else it is that you want to put down. If you do play, if you are an expert piano player, then you can get some really incredible MIDI keyboards that feel just like a proper piano. Piano is one of my main instruments, so in my studio I've got a full-size 88-key MIDI keyboard that is fully weighted with hammer action, so it feels exactly like you were playing a grand piano. I don't do an awful lot of work with synths, so I didn't need a load of programmable buttons on it. I'm mostly playing piano, I'm recording string arrangements, and maybe the odd bit of programming drums. But for me, the most important thing was the feel. So I went with the M-Audio Hammer 88. Very, very simple, very, very affordable, and it does the job just fine. Now on to number 5 is microphones. You're almost certainly going to need a microphone or some microphones of some description. Unless you were doing entirely electronic instrumental music, you're probably going to need to record something with a microphone. And the main one is vocals. Most songs have lyrics, so you're going to want to be able to record your own vocals, or a singer come to your studio and you record them. Maybe you're a guitarist and you've got a stunning selection of amps and cabs. Then maybe you're going to want to be able to record those. Maybe you've got a beautiful piano in your home or your studio and you want to be able to record that. You're going to need microphones for it. Acoustic guitars is another one, particularly for singer-songwriter, for pop, rock, country music. Acoustic guitars play a big part. You're likely going to want to be able to record that as well. Now, the microphone that you purchase depends entirely on what you plan to use it for. A great workhorse to have in the studio is just a large diaphragm condenser. This can do most, if not everything, that you need. You can get great sounding vocals with a large diaphragm condenser. You can get stunning acoustic guitar sounds. You can put it on a piano. You could put it on violins and cellos. You could put it in front of guitar cabs, as long as it's not too close, not too loud. Which microphone you buy is going to depend entirely on you. It's going to depend on which one suits your voice, your instruments, your room the best. So the best advice I can give you is to go out, try lots of different microphones, ideally in your own environment if you can, and then you can purchase the one that you like the best. In terms of large diaphragm condensers, you cannot go far wrong with an AKG 414. That is a workhorse mic that sounds very, very good. U87s are stunning, but they are very expensive. There are some really good clones though. The Warm Audio clone is very, very good. In fact, Warm Audio do some stunning mics and it's worth checking them out. Lewitt also makes some really, really great microphones for the price as well. If you're recording guitar amps, then the classic choice for this would be a Shure SM57, and even if you're not, it's useful to have an SM57 in your studio because they are indestructible and they sound great. You can use them on singers. They sound really great for rock vocals. You can even put them on acoustic guitars if you prefer a darker sound that's a bit more mid-focused. If you're going to be recording lots of live instruments, so drums, pianos, strings, violins, things like that, then you might want to look at a pair of microphones, a stereo pair. You can get pairs of all the ones I've mentioned, so the AKG 414 comes as a match pair, the U87 you can get as a match pair. You could also look at some small diaphragm condensers as well. If you want a more vintage, a little bit of a darker sound, then you could look at ribbon microphones. SE do a really, really great ribbon. It's called the VR1. I've got a pair of them in my mic locker and I've used them for guitar amps. They sound really, really great in front of a guitar amp. They sound great on drums as overheads. They sound great on woodwind and brass as well. I've had saxophone players come where we've used the VR1 ribbon and it's sounded absolutely stellar. There's almost unlimited choice when it comes to microphones, but the best advice I can give you is to go out, try as many as you can, and then you can decide which one you like best. Now, there are a few other things that are really important to get right in your studio. So these are a couple of bonus ones for you. And the first one I want to talk about are cables. Now, this might sound really, really boring, and to be honest, you'd probably be right. Cables are just one of those really annoying things that you need, and it's just kind of annoying that you have to spend money on it. But if that's the case, then you might as well do it right, and you might as well get really good, high quality cables that are going to last a really long time. They're not going to fail on you in the middle of a session and you can just forget about it. Rather than buying cheap, having them fail in the middle of a session, which is the worst thing in the world, especially if you've got a client in the studio and constantly having to spend money replacing them. Now in my studio, I've got a lot of Lynx cables. Lynx do really good quality cables with really good connectors as well. I'm also using Warm Audio. Warm Audio do some unbelievably good quality cables at a very reasonable price point, and I'm also using some Monster cables as well. I've got Monster guitar leads, I've got a few Monster XLR mic cables as well. Some of these even come with a lifetime warranty, so if they do fail, you can send them back and you'll get a replacement. The other thing that's worth considering in your studio, and it has been an absolute godsend for me, is having a second screen. You can probably see on the wall behind me, I have two screens. I have my Raven, which is the touch screen at the bottom. That is a bit of a luxury. You don't necessarily need that. But then I also have the 4K monitor on the wall. Even if you're just making music on a laptop, having a second monitor that you can just plug into and you can spread the session out over those two screens, is really going to speed up your workflow and make it more efficient. The most annoying thing when you're trying to record, you're trying to be creative, you're trying to mix, is constantly having to click between windows. And this just solves that problem. You can spread your session out, you can see everything, you can access everything. And it just means that you can focus on what's important, which is making music, rather than navigating your way through the session. Now, if you're an artist, if you're in a band, if you're a songwriter, basically if you're releasing music in any way, shape or form, then I've got something that you're almost certainly going to want to check out. The most important document that you have in order to get access to opportunities to get your music heard by thousands, if not millions of people, is your EPK. When you release a new song and you're getting in touch with radio presenters, DJs, blogs, magazines, newspapers, even promoters who can get you gigs on big stages, festival stages, support slots, your EPK is what you're going to send them. It's essentially your digital CV that tells them who you are, what you do, what you're all about, with links where they can listen to your music. Now the problem is, if your EPK sucks, if it doesn't look professional and doesn't contain the relevant information that they need, they're just going to ignore it. They're going to delete your email out of their inbox forever, and you have just wasted an opportunity. Your EPK is that essential first impression. It's your foot in the door, getting these people to listen to your music, where hopefully they like it and then they get back in touch. So as a result, it's got to be right. Now to help with this, I've created an EPK template that you can use to design a stunning looking professional EPK that crucially contains all of the information that needs to be on there. And the best part is, it's completely free to use. So go and check it out. The link's in the description below. It's super simple to use. You can literally have it up and running, ready to go in minutes.